Spock, we'll leave orbit in 2 hours. Would you care to beam down and visit your parents?
Ambassador SAREK and his wife are my parents.
Put the kettle on, babes. There's about to be some tea. It's a special occasion for our crew, as the Enterprise is ferrying representatives from all across the Federation on a diplomatic summit, where they will make a decision on permitting a new planet into the Federation family. Seems like an invitation for trouble to put so many important people on one vulnerable vessel, but no one ever consults me about these things. The command crew shows out in their formal regalia to welcome the delegates. Bones, naturally, is unhappy.
Feel like my neck's in a sling.
Their last stop before the conference is Spock's home planet of Vulcan, where they pick up, "Look out! It's that Romulan captain!" Oh, wait, it's just Ambassador SAREK, and his human wife, Amanda Grayson, played by the mom from Father Knows Best. "Hey, Mrs. Anderson, did you know we had your daughter here in the last episode?" Jim offers them a tour of the ship given by Spock, to which SAREK coldly replies that he would prefer a different guide. As it would turn out, the Ambassador and his wife are Spock's parents. Kirk is like, OMG, am I unlocking my boyfriend's mysterious backstory? Settle in for 45 minutes of family drama from the House of SAREK. On their way to Babel, people of different cultures gathering in the same place for the sake of unity. I get the reference. Things are tense, both among the diplomats and between Spock and his father. Amanda is the unapologetically human mama bear we all know Spock needs. "Spock, you don't call, you don't write, you worry your poor mother to death." Mother. "Just look at you, you're so skinny. Are they feeding you on this starship?" Mother. "I know things didn't work out with that T'Pring girl, but you know, I'm getting up there in years. When are you going to get married and give me some grandchildren to spoil? You know that captain of yours, he's very handsome. Is he single?" "Mom, you're embarrassing me." "Embarrassment is emotion, sweetums." F***ing kill me. SAREK and Spock apparently had a falling out when Spock decided to enlist in Starfleet instead of joining the illustrious Vulcan Science Academy. More on that story in another Star Trek show. And they haven't spoken since, with Amanda stuck in the middle trying desperately to get them to reconcile. Uhura reports that she's picked up an odd signal, but it's probably nothing. Probably. At the cocktail party that evening, we meet never-before-seen alien species that help make up the Federation, namely Tellarites, people resembling Earth pigs, and Andorians, blue guys with white hair and antennae. Amanda continues to overshare about Spock's upbringing, telling Bones how Spock had a pet Sailot when he was younger.
It's sort of a fat teddy bear.
A teddy bear?
Oh, I am gonna roast the shit out of you over this later. The bridge crew reports a small vessel tailing the Enterprise from a distance that has so far refused to answer hails. Kirk says to keep an eye on it. SAREK gets into a disagreement with Tellarite Ambassador Gav over the vote to induct Corridan into the Federation. Gav's body is found in a Jeffries tube almost immediately afterward, killed by a very specific Vulcan form of execution. Looks like there's gonna be fresh bacon for breakfast. Was that racist? Logically, SAREK is the prime suspect, but when Kirk and the boys come to question the ambassador, he suddenly has a collapse. Note that Bones says it's his cardiovascular system, but his tricorder is not scanning where the Vulcan heart would be. As they try to solve the mystery of the suspicious vessel shadowing them, Spock seems extremely unfazed by his father's sudden turn. They still have no clue what faction the ship could belong to. Then, Uhura discovers that the ship is in contact with someone aboard. It turns out that SAREK has had basically the Vulcan equivalent of a heart attack, and has been having a shit ton of them lately, unbeknownst to his wife. SAREK was having an attack when the ambassador was murdered, so he definitely wasn't in any condition to be snapping necks. This is where things get a little complicated, so just bear with me. So, SAREK needs a special operation pretty much immediately that would require a massive blood transfusion, but the hitch is that SAREK has an incredibly rare Vulcan blood type, and the Enterprise simply doesn't have a big enough supply of it on hand. Fortunately, Spock happens to share his father's incredibly rare blood type, but his blood is diluted with human blood from his half-human anatomy, so his blood would have to be filtered before it was given to SAREK. But then there's another issue, the fact that Spock alone wouldn't be able to give enough blood necessary for the procedure, or he'd be sucked dry. And only Jim gets to suck Spock dry.
Oh my.
Spock comes up with an idea to use a highly experimental drug that would accelerate blood production in his body, like giving steroids to a cow to increase the amount of milk it makes. I think this might be a bad idea. All of this has a very low success rate of working, putting Spock at great risk, not to mention that Bones isn't confident in his knowledge about Vulcan anatomy. It's too bad they don't have a medical professional on board who specializes in this kind of thing. Maybe Mbinga's gone on a fishing trip this week. Nevertheless, Spock is willing to try it. At the same time, however, Kirk is under attack from a member of the Andorian party. This is one of the better fights in TOS, maybe because it doesn't suffer from a case of, oh look, the stunt double. Shadass is a deadly weapon. Kirk manages to subdue the assailant, but not before being severely injured. With the captain now incapacitated, it's Spock's duty to take over command of the ship, including the ongoing investigation involving the murdered Tellarite, the mysterious ship, and now Kirk's attacker, which means he can't undergo the surgery. Which means SAREK will die.
You can turn command over to Scotty.
Command requirements do not recognize personal privilege.
Damn, that's cold. Interrogating the assassin unfortunately yields no answers. Amanda goes to see Spock to beg him to, for once, do the human thing, put duty aside and save his father's life. Spock cannot. It's a hard scene to watch.
Then you'll stand there, speaking rules and regulations from Starfleet and Vulcan philosophy, and let your father die, and I'll hate you for the rest of my life.
Jim's in pretty bad shape, but being the good boyfriend that he is, pulls himself out of bed and pretends to be well enough for duty so that Spock will have no choice but to go in for the surgery, at great risk to himself. And I love him for this moment. It's one of Kirk's genius moments of using his ability to manipulate for good. The alien ship reappears, and it's discovered that it's in contact with the Andorian in the brig. The security officers find that his antennae are fake, and his communication device is hidden inside one of them. A space battle ensues, buffeting the Enterprise about precariously as Bones performs the delicate and dangerous operation on SAREK and Spock, as if there isn't already enough risk in all this. As the enemy ship is too fast, a waning Kirk comes up with another brilliant strategy to play dead, turning off all non-essential power in the Enterprise to make the enemy think the ship is disabled and lure them in. It works, and Chekov fires off a debilitating shot. The spy ship itself destructs, refusing to surrender. The fake Andorian also self-destructs, having ingested slow-acting poison. In sickbay, both father and son Vulcan are recovering, Bones miraculously having pulled off the procedure. Spock reveals his hunch that the assassin was a surgically altered agent of the Orion Syndicate. The Orions being a politically neutral species living in and around Federation space, known for conducting illegal activities, from space piracy to capturing and selling people as slaves. We saw an Orion slave woman, or an illusion of one, in the menagerie. Causing interplanetary war would have been very profitable to Orion dilithium suppliers, not to mention that keeping Coridan out of the Federation would have left it vulnerable for Orion miners to keep plundering it for precious dilithium. It seems that a quiet reconciliation between father and son has occurred. Amanda tries to get them to share their emotions because female, but Spock and SAREK remain stoic, much to her frustration.
Logic. I'm sick to death of logic. Do you want to know how I feel about your logic?
Emotional, isn't she?
She has always been that way.
Indeed. Why did you marry her?
At the time, it seemed the logical thing to do.
They are marriage goals, Your Honor. With Kirk weakening, Bones confines both he and Spock to bed rest. The two stubbornly protest, but Bones silences them with a hearty shush.
Well, what do you know? I finally got the last word.
I wish every episode of Star Trek could be this fun and full of charisma. Journey to Babel is so meaty and full of plot, quite a contrast to the last story. This episode has everything. Murder mysteries, Spock's parents, pig people, Kirk getting top surgery. Also, for those of you who are interested in the world building and politics within the Star Trek universe, this is a good episode. It makes a lot of nerds top episodes of the original series. And it's no wonder it's good. It's written by the woman, the myth, the legend, the DC Fontana. Obviously, the biggest draw of the episode is the further exploration of Spock's backstory. Remember that Spock was the unexpected breakout icon of Star Trek. Roddenberry and the execs thought that the bold, dashing Captain Kirk would be everyone's favorite character. Spock was basically a Tumblr sexy man before Tumblr was a thing. So going into Season 2, there was real motivation for the writers to feature Spock more and expand his character. Fontana had been intrigued by the smatterings of allusions to Spock's parents.
In some manner, he was reminiscent of my father.
Then may heaven have helped your mother.
Quite the contrary. She considered herself a very fortunate Earthwoman.
So the, if you'll pardon the expression, logical course of action was to write an episode actually introducing SAREK and Amanda, and since Spock and other Vulcans act like they are so above petty emotional human drama, of course it's great fun to see what messy bitches Vulcans truly are. But one night I got to thinking about Spock's upbringing and the societal expectations Vulcans place on its citizens, and starting from such a young age too. And it got me thinking that Vulcan culture may have been an unwitting criticism of toxic masculinity. Oh no, I just said the magic words. R.I.P. comment section. Now, before I go any further, I have to include the obligatory disclaimer that toxic masculinity doesn't mean men are bad. I have to specify this because if I don't, the piss babies will get mad. There's no way I could ever be a misandrist. I have several male friends. The term toxic masculinity is believed to have been first coined in the nebulous 1980s, but it has had a resurgence in the last 10 years. And what it refers to is the unhealthy expectations we put on men, at least in the Western world, and the adverse effects they have on everybody. Because, believe it or not, toxic masculinity doesn't just hurt women, it harms the very boys and men we teach it to as well. You've heard the old expression time and time again. Real men don't cry.
What, are you crying? You don't cry, all right? You keep your chin up. Come on, keep your chin up. Crying never helped anybody do anything, okay? You have a problem? You face it like a man.
Society tells men from a young age that in order to be a real man, they mustn't express any emotion, apart from rage, because violence means you're not that sadness and sensitivity are signs of weakness. And if this sounds a lot like how Vulcan parents raise their children, it's supposed to.
When you were 5 years old and came home stiff-lipped, anguished, because the other boys tormented you, saying that you weren't really Vulcan. I watched you, knowing that inside, the human part of you was crying. And I cried too.
It should be clear to anyone who's watched this far that Spock does feel emotion, no matter what he claims. But in accordance with Vulcan culture, he pushes them down and pretends that they don't have any power over him.
I don't talk about feelings, Alfred. I don't have any. I've never seen one. I'm a night-stalking, crime-fighting vigilante and a heavy metal rapping machine.
I've mentioned in the past how Spock represents the superego, the higher reasoning part of the human psyche. Of course, having a handle on one's emotions is important. Not flying into a rage every time we're angry, or just eating whatever's in sight because we're hungry is what separates us from the animals. But that doesn't mean suppressing all emotion is good or healthy. What about positive emotions like joy and love? Even negative emotions have a purpose. Crying when we're upset releases stress. Anger, when a modicum of self-control is applied, can be channeled into a force for good. Great societal progress never came about because people were content with the way things were. It's about finding a happy medium. But that's not the way things happen on Vulcan.
My mother, I could never tell her I loved her, Earthwoman. Living on a planet where love, emotion, bad taste. Like my father, our customs stand, Jim. Spend a whole lifetime learning to hide my feelings.
Amanda and SAREK are symbolic of Spock's inner conflict, quite literally his human half versus his Vulcan half. And in this way, logic and reason are coded as masculine, while feelings are connected to the feminine. This is toxic masculinity 101, and that's where the other half of the equation comes in. Anything that does not fall under that narrow view of masculinity is seen as soft, weak, feminine, and ultimately inferior. Or to put it in more academic terms, boys go to college to get more knowledge, girls go to Jupiter to get more stupider. Even though Vulcans of all gender are taught to practice logic and to suppress their emotions, that doesn't mean that all Vulcans are treated equal. It's hinted in Amok Time that women have less rights in Vulcan society and are seen as subservient to their husbands. It's further hinted at in the way that SAREK often addresses Amanda.
My wife, attend.
Even Kirk's space feminist remarks on the patriarchal way SAREK acts.
It sounded more like a command.
Well, of course. He's a Vulcan. I'm his wife.
SAREK and Amanda are an unorthodox couple by Vulcan standards. We'll learn later on that Amanda was not SAREK's first marriage, and that SAREK divorced his first wife whom his family betrothed him to, and later married Amanda for love. If that wasn't scandalous enough, Amanda is a human. Given the subtle and not so subtle ways Spock and other Vulcans have spoken to and about humans, it's implied that Vulcans are a bit racist? That they clearly think of themselves as better or more evolved than humans.
They were brutal, savage, unprincipled, uncivilized, treacherous. In every way, splendid examples of Homo sapiens, the very flower of humanity.
Now, I take a lot of this as internalized racism on Spock's part. He did grow up being shat upon for his biracial lineage. It makes sense that he would develop this, yeah, humans suck mentality as a survival mechanism. It's the part of himself that he resents. Even Amanda, after living on Vulcan for a long time, seems to have internalized it a little bit.
You don't understand the Vulcan way, Captain. It's logical. It's a better way than ours.
Maybe Vulcans are less violent than humans, or whatever, but it also refutes the entire idea behind Star Trek, that humans will become better as time goes on. That maybe we won't be perfect, but the big ones, like racism and class separation and the like, will someday be in our rearview mirror, and we won't have to sacrifice our humanity to do it. And despite what the characters say, I think that the framing backs up my opinion, that all that suppression of emotion bullshit is superfluous. You don't have to go through life as a robot to improve yourself. Humans like Kirk and Bones and Uhura are doing just fine. And this is coming from someone whose default setting is emotionally icing everyone out. I'm a Scorpio after all. So, I don't know if you heard, but we finally got to 1,000 subscribers.
We did it, Joe.
Thank you so much from the bottom of my tiny, shriveled little Grinch heart. Thank you for your support, your likes and comments, and most especially, my patrons. I love you guys. And I mean that in the most homosexual way possible. I have a good feeling about 2023. Just as long as there's no new plagues, or attempted fascist coups, or the Percy Jackson series on Disney Plus blowing ass. I think it's going to be a good year, and I'm excited to spend it with all of you. And that's why I hate Star Trek 2009. I love you, Zachary Quinto, but you were wasted as Spock. That character arc was about as complex as an episode of Cocomelon. Me no have feelings. You mom die dead. Spocky mad. Spocky smash. Oh no, me do have feelings. Did J.J. Abrams and Stephen Moffat and Andrew Dabb just meet up one day and decide to ruin every piece of media I consume? I have nowhere to put this bit, so I'm just going to put it at the end of the video as an Easter egg for my real fans.